Hey guys, Steve here with the Scroll Saw Workshop. In the first video of this series of 3 videos, I reviewed the xTool P2 55-watt laser engraver cutter. And that first video was going over the general fit and finish of the laser and also a couple of its unique features. But it started getting pretty long, so I broke it up, and this is going to be the second video. And in this video, we're going to kind of go back to the basics, and I'm going to talk about the xTool Creative Space software that they provide with the machine to control the operations. So I'm going to go ahead and start the xTool Creative Space software up here so you can see how it loads up. It's really responsive. It loads quickly. I'm on a reasonably fast computer, but it's a few years old, so I don't think most of your computers are going to have any trouble handling that. When the Creative Space software loads up, the first thing it does is it takes, using one of its 2 cameras, it takes a photo of the bed of your laser. So what you're seeing here on the screen are the slats in the bed of the laser and a piece of cardboard that I've laid there, so we had something to take a picture of and something to lay our designs out on. So what I want to do is, I'm not going to touch on every feature of the Creative Space because that'll make the video a little bit too long. But what I do want to do is start over here on the left hand side, work our way across, and we'll show basically what each of the buttons do and a couple of things that might be a little bit hidden on you. So up here in the upper left hand corner, we've got a button that says Settings. If you click on that, I'm going to quickly go through the highlights of what's here and what you need to know. The first selection up here is whether you want to have the machine in millimeters or inches. You can change that to either you prefer. You also, under hotkeys, this view item will bring up your web browser and show you a list of all the keyboard hotkeys that let you do different functions on the computer. That's pretty important. I would, if I were you, I would consider opening that up, either typing in to a notepad or something and printing out the custom keys that you use the most often, because there's a few of them. Then we've got a few other things here. If you go down to the bottom, the current version that I'm using right now at this date is 1.3, but if you click on the check for updates, it'll check and see if there's any updates to the software, and they are doing a pretty good job of updating the software. They've recently added new features, and the Creative Space software is one of the better pieces of software that I have seen packaged with any of these consumer grade laser printer cutters. It actually does a decent job. Now, I'm a Lightburn guy. I usually use Lightburn for all of my lasers, and I will probably use Lightburn on this laser as well. But right now there's a couple of incompatibilities with Lightburn in this laser, so I'm waiting to see if they work those out before I move over to it. I can use Lightburn now, but it's got a couple little issues. But the good news is the Creative Space software is a usable piece of software, and it's simple to learn and has enough features to get you by most jobs. You also have a developer mode down here. We won't talk about that. If you ever contact their support, they may have you use that. To the right of the settings button, we've got the file button, which does all the typical things you would expect. You can open a project, and the open the project will open projects that were saved from within the Creative Space software. Import images will open up a directory that allows you to import images that you've saved that you want to laser engrave or cut. Along the left hand side of the screen here, we've got some buttons that do basic features. The first one is a button titled Image. When you click on that, it does the same thing as the file import image does. It allows us to come over, select a file. It always brings into the file into the upper left hand corner of the bed. You can lasso it, drag it over to your project, and that pattern is now ready to start on the laser after we do a couple of basic setups. Below the image is the Insert button, and it allows you to draw lines, rectangles, and circles. Handy. Below that, we have a button called Shapes. it brings up a list of a fairly large number of shapes. Some of them are more useful than others, but it's still nice to have. In this instance, I'm going to draw a circle. So I click on the circle and it automatically gives me a circle on the screen, which I can resize. If I turn off the lock button over here, I can stretch it. So it allows me to do some things that I might need to do for images that I have designed outside of this program, but I just want to add a few little things to it. You could do complete designs within the Creative Cloud space, but it's not quite powerful enough yet to do anything very intricate. So I'm going to hit the delete key and delete that circle. Below the shapes, we have the text tool. When you click on the text tool, it automatically sets the text on the bed and starts out with the word hello. Over here to the right of the bed, we have all the parameters for the text. So up here, we can highlight this, delete it, and type in your name or whatever you want to do. Okay? Obviously, you can do the same with that. You can resize it. You see the size and the points of that font right here. Under typeface, we've got several different fonts we can select. I think these are actually the fonts that are installed on your computer. So if you have a lot of fonts installed, it gives you a pretty good selection. Under that, we got style, which is italic, bold, bold italic. Under that, we've got spacing. What that allows you to do is change the spacing between the letters. And leading, let me back up here so I can show you what I want to do here. Let's select my text. Let's do space. Put my name above and below each other. When I go down to leading, let's say I type in 3, it's actually changing the spacing between the words. That's what that is. Below that, we have left align, which is here where it is now. Middle, to where it centers the words up. And let's go back to it. Sorry about that. Actually, what I just did is I just welded that together. Let me back up here. When I hit weld by accident, instead of doing the right alignment, which is what I was trying to do, I actually hit this weld command. So let's say we've got this text the way we want it. I want to take the leading off, change it back to 0. Let's say this is the text the way we want it. We can weld this together by hitting this button right here, and that turns it into an object and it's no longer text, so we can no longer edit it. So that's what that does. And I won't go into details on that, but that's the idea. I'm going to delete all this off the screen. Below that, we have the xArt, which is actually AI generated art, and I will show you that very quickly, but the process can get complex, but you can keep it simple. So when we click on that, it will bring up this screen, and under here, under prompt, if we delete the prompt they've got in there and type gray scale wild horse. Say that's the prompt. We're looking for a horse that we want to laser engrave. We go down here and hit generate. It will think about it for a little bit and think about it for a little bit more. These AI generators, depending on the time of day you use them, can be extremely slow. So you do have to use these with a little bit of patience. But here we've generated our horse. If we don't like that, we can hit generate and it'll keep doing that. There is a cost associated with these after you reach your limit. So down here it goes points rules. Click on that, read the subscription you have to follow to get into this. I personally wouldn't use this because the Microsoft Edge browser has an included add-on that you can add to it that will let you use the DALL-E AI image generator, and you get 100 of those a day for free. So, and it works every bit as well as this one. So anyway, it's there if you need it. You can read the rules and figure out how to do it. You can also go back up here, hit the history button, and it'll take and go back through all the history of all the images that I have generated. So you can see in this case, I did a very graphic black and white image. Each of these is a little bit different parameter to get me what I wanted. Let's get out of that. Okay, now we're going to start going across the top. So I'm going to bring in a shape. I'll bring in a circle and a square. So we've got these two on the screen. Now, the first thing I want to do is go across the top, and then we'll talk about this layers feature down here because that's a very powerful feature. Across the top, we have different features up here, and I'm going to show you a couple of these, but not all of them because I went through some of it in the first video. Let's say we have these two shapes on the screen. We've got them overlapping, and we want to align or group them together. If we hit group, now when we move these, they're grouped together. If we hit ungroup, we can grab one of them and move them apart. So if you have a bunch of items that you've got positioned where you want them and you can group them together or move them around as a single unit, that lessens your chance of getting them out of alignment. Okay, we have both of these. We select both of them. We go to align. We've got all these alignment adjustments we can do. Let's say we want to do align to top. There you can see the two objects are aligned to the top. We can do align horizontal and align center, and you can see we've centered them in right on top of each other. So that's what your align button does. When you have more than one object selected, this gives you the ability to align the different shapes. Sometimes when you have these objects, let's say I'm going to set this one to engrave so it turns black. Sometimes when you have these objects, you may find that you want one in back of the other. And up here under arrange, we can do that. So in this case, we've got the front object selected. We want to send it to the back. We do that. If I change this to move to the red layer, you can see it is now on top. Since I've got to that point, let's talk about layers. There's three basic options you can do using a laser engraver. One, in this case, in the Creative Space software, they call score. The next is called engrave, and the third is called cut. Now, score and cut are similar, but in this case, we've got this blue image set to engrave. So the laser will come out and go back and forth until it creates this rectangle on your piece of wood as a solid area. The red I'm going to set over here to cut. The laser will come out, follow the circle around, and cut through the wood. Depending on the power setting you have and the speed, it will cut through different thicknesses of wood. So cut is follow the line around. Engrave is back and forth and fill the whole area in. Score, if we were to set this piece to score, which I just did, it basically is to draw lines on the screen at a slower speed and a more fidelity to the line. That's kind of what that is. Okay, when you put your piece of wood on the screen and the laser head comes out with the camera and takes a picture of the bed, one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't measure how thick the wood is on the bed that you've placed there. So if you've got an item selected, this thing flies out, which allows you to set the parameters of the cut or the engrave. But if you click off of that shape so it's not selected, it'll go back to this screen where you can change the thickness of the board you have on there. And the nice thing about the Creative Space software is it will automatically measure the thickness of the wood. So if we click on this little button right here, the measure button, when we bring it up, the mouse back over onto the screen, it has this little square. If we click someplace on the square, the laser head will actually come out, measure that wood, or in this case cardboard, and come back and give you a thickness of that material. Now, what I have found is the color of this cardboard kind of makes this a little flaky. Let's do another measurement over here where it's a little brighter. See if we get a different reading here other than 6.1. Yeah, we did 3.4. This is actually more accurate, and I think it's just the reflection value or the density of this cardboard. Sometimes it's not very accurate. So if you put a 3mm piece of wood on there and it comes up and tells you that it's 6mm, do another measurement in an area where it's a little lighter and see if that helps. That's all I'm going to go through on the measuring, even though there's a little more to it. Up here we've got a button that says slats flat. This is the mode selector button, and in this case we've got all the slats in the machine and we've got the piece of cardboard laid on top of those slats. So we've got slats flat selected as the mode. If we click on that, we've got other modes that we can select. We've got the laser cylindrical, which if you have the rotary tool, you can use this. Open plane allows you to take out the slats and remove the debris tray and measure thicker items. Conveyor mode is if you purchase the conveyor option, it will actually feed in longer boards automatically and let you engrave on them. And the curve process is where we actually have, like say, a bowl on the bed and we want to engrave onto the curve of the bowl. And I showed that process in the first video. So most of the time you're going to have your wood setting on the flats and you're going to have the mode selected as flat. Above that, this little green box allows us to refresh the screen. In other words, take another picture of the bed. So if we've cut a couple pieces out of this wood and we want to align the next project, we can do that by taking another picture. And it also shows you the connection point. In this case, I'm away from the machine, so I'm using Wi-Fi to connect to the laser. Up here in the right hand corner of this green box, there's a little shape that is actually a menu item. If you click on that, it will open up and give you a few things to look at. Switch devices allows you to switch the laser that the creative space is attached to, or the mode that you have it attached, whether it's network, Wi-Fi, or whatever. I'm not going to go through that. That's a little bit more than I want to do in this video. Under basic info, we have the name of the device, the fact that it's a 55-watt laser, the serial number, firmware, check for updates of the firmware, the Wi-Fi settings, and the IP address of this unit. Working info. Right now I have 11.2 hours on this laser. I've operated the laser 270 times, standby time of 76 hours. In other words, I've left it turned on a while. And then here's the working log that we can export if you ever are working with xTool support. Down here under settings, there's a few things here that you definitely want to pay attention to. I'm not going to go through all of them. On this machine, like I mentioned in the first video, the top door stays locked for 10 seconds after the job is completed to eliminate the smoke from inside the laser. You can turn that feature off. Optical path test. This allows you to test the alignment of the laser, and I'm not going to go through that in this video, but I probably will come back and do that later. You can actually import G-code, which is a feature we won't get into. We can change the brightness of the light. A couple other things down here. We can change the power of the air assist, which can sometimes be useful, and the lowest output power that the laser will actually turn on for. So we're not going to go into detail on any of that, but that's where that is, and it can be a little difficult to find because it's just that little spot right there. Up here in the upper right hand corner, we have some menus. This is announcements. They update this fairly regularly. We have community forums where you can go through and do how-to videos, different weekly updates, ask the community a question. Handy feature. Up here under projects, they have a small selection of projects that you can download and engrave or cut. Here's your support menu item, and then over here is the shop, which will take you to the shop where you can buy xTool accessories, etc. That is most of what I want to show you. These two buttons down here on the left, the hand item turns it to a hand, lets you move the screen around. go back to the select item. This lets you select items. If you hold down the control key and scroll your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. If you hold down the space bar, it automatically turns on your hand, and that's the way I do it. I never use this button down here. I always hit the space bar, and then I can zoom in using the control, and then pan using the space bar. The machine also has a close capture view, where if you want to get these objects lined up very precisely, that's what this button right here is. The laser camera will come out, define a small area to take another picture, and when you move objects within that small area, the alignment is very, very accurate. So that is the Creative Space highlights. It's a usable piece of software. It's actually, like I said earlier, the first included software with the laser that I've actually enjoyed using. It is not bad, and luckily they're improving it. So I'm Steve Good. Thanks for being here with me at the Scroll Saw Workshop, and we'll catch you in the next video.